Okay. All right, sorry about that. Since the wrong link was not working well. Hi. Welcome on in. Go ahead and chime in the chat. We're just giving people a few minutes, but I appreciate your patience. It's been a little difficult trying to get the live set up this time around, but we'll just be back and at it next week. We plan on doing these every Friday, answering frequently asked questions that we get. So if you have any questions come up that are coming up for you in terms of the election, feel free to drop them in the chat as we give people a few more moments to hop on in. All right, all right. I don't know if you can hear the music, but of course, for Facebook purposes, we do not own the rights to these songs. I just like jamming out a little bit in terms of like, things that are going on, stuff like that. But how's everybody's Fridays going? I know it's pretty eventful with the news and everything. And plus, it's just 2020. All right. Hey, we got somebody else in here. Feel free to chime on in the chat. We're just giving people a couple more moments. But my name is Michelle Wilson. I'm the senior program manager here at Women Engage. And so this live stream is a part of a series that we'll be doing all month long where we're answering frequently asked questions that we get in our nonpartisan outreach efforts, as well as just answering and having a dialogue, talking about stuff. We may have a few guest appearances from other folks as they come in and stuff. So we just hope that you can, come in, vibe with us, all that jazz. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just dive right on in. I know folks will probably tune in and out as needed, and that's a-okay. But again, my name is Michelle. I am the senior program manager here at Women Engage, and we do nonpartisan 501c3 voter outreach year round around civic engagement, the importance of making sure that we're getting folks the information that they need to feel confident and astute when voting in elections, and also engaging in civic engagement beyond election years. And so we've been around since October of 2014. In fact, we'll turning six later on this month. I've been with the team for about a little over 3 years now. And so I'm really excited to have this session just to kind of talk about some of the questions that we get. Um, our We Vote, our We Vote, We Rise program is designed to engage our communities, particularly in Southwest Atlanta, East Point, College Park, and we've recently expanded out to 7 other counties about the intersections of civic engagement and reproductive justice. Reproductive justice is a term that was coined in 1994 by 12 amazing Black women in films to really expand the scope of how we see reproductive rights issues, to talking about the needs for us to have control over our environment, and be able to assert our own autonomy when it comes to these issues and things like that. So we really believe in using our civic power as an extension of the overarching liberation movements, um, to actualize justice for our communities, for our families, and for ourselves. So, as you all know, this year has been a long one. A lot of things have shifted, a lot of things have changed. And now, more than ever, there are so many questions and so much information out there around the election, what's going to happen, how do we address these things, like how are we voting, in the context of everything that's going on. And so, we want to just have this space and opportunity on Fridays at 12 o'clock with our lunches in hand to have discussions about, what we're hearing from the community when we do our outreach, and also, what we're hearing about, like, as far as, when we're engaging people. Just to note though, our program right now is all virtual and remote, so we do a lot of our voter outreach through phone, text, and social media. So if you are interested in joining those efforts or volunteering, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can send us a direct message here on Facebook, and we can get you connected with some of those opportunities. But I'm going to go ahead and just start and dive into some of the questions that we have already on deck. The first one that I received was, what do I do if I'm not sure how I can get to the polls? So, rise to the polls, absentee ballots. I would say if you're in the state of Georgia, it's very fortunate that we actually have a website, ridetothepolls.com, where you can actually request a ride to the poll. And for those who actually have cars and like transportation and are willing, you can also sign up to volunteer as well. Of course, this is keeping in mind that you're following best practices for COVID-19. So that means wearing a mask. Also, knowing that more than likely there'll be one person in the vehicle, but there'll be more information at that site. And we'll be sure to share that site in a separate post for folks who are interested in using that service in order to make sure they can get to the polls. But if you're really worried about if you can get to the polls or not, we always encourage to vote early by mail. I know that there's been a lot of information circulating around the post office and if things can get mailed in, and other stuff like that. And the thing is that in the state of Georgia, we actually have a number of opportunities to make sure that our ballots are getting to the county elections office, and knowing that they're really going to get counted. And so there's actually an online portal now where in Georgia where you can actually request your absentee ballot, um, and then it'll get processed. Once you receive it, you can not only just mail it in, but you can also take it to a official drop box by the county elections office, or you can hand deliver it to the county elections office yourself. And if you're interested in navigating that process or getting more information, I would direct you to govotega.org. And they actually have an FAQ there where it actually lists out all the drop boxes in your county. And then, of course, if you need assistance in navigating that process, again, as always, our messages are open for you to submit any questions or anything like that. Hey, y'all. I see y'all joining, chiming in. Go ahead and sound off in the comment section. Tell us where you're watching from. And if you're eating lunch, what are you eating lunch? I will tell you now, I made some pecan tacos, trying to, eat a little healthier, try to keep things at bay. And so uh, I got my pecan tacos with some avocado and a little lemonade on the side. Um, but yeah, go ahead and chime off in the comments. But that's the answer to the first question as far as like what to do if you're not sure about how to get to the polls. The next question that I have is, why does the census deadline keep getting moved, and why is it so important now to get counted? So just to give some context about the census is done every 10 years. It's one of the oldest ritual practices that this country has done as far as getting a count about who all is currently in the country. And the reason that the deadline keeps getting pushed is that once the pandemic began to happen in March, the current administration moved to push the deadline up a bit. And it's just due to a host of number. a number of reasons that are outside of my own knowing. However, the census is really important when it comes to our communities, especially for Black folks and people of color, because historically we have been undercounted in the census. And this is really the first time that we actually have the opportunity to make sure that we are counted. This is the first time in the history of the census that we actually have the self response portal. So you're able to actually take the census online. It takes less than 3 minutes, literally like less time than like your favorite songs. And so you can actually take that in a matter of minutes. And it doesn't ask invasive questions. So, like, I know a lot of people are like, why do I need to tell them all my business? And I'll let you know now that it's not on the census. It really just asks for your name, your address, and your birthday, and then a little demographic information, such as race and gender. But outside of that, that's about it. It's really painless, but it really makes sure that we get the resources that we need in our communities and that we get the political representation of our communities. So, in the communities that we serve, particularly in Southwest Atlanta, a number of them are what we call hard to count areas. And so, what that means is that, like, while surrounding areas might have a response rate of anywhere from 60 to 70%, we see that these areas actually have somewhere closer to 30% in certain census tracts. And so what we want to do is make sure that people are getting accurate counts and that way we're getting accurate representation because the representation as far as how we're represented in the federal body, the Congress, is dictated by the sizes and the populations of certain areas. So if we're not getting counted in our neighborhoods accurately, then we might be throwing off representation with other areas that actually have a much smaller populace are actually getting much more representation than what they would have gotten if everyone else would have taken the census. Also, it deals with just resources and where businesses are. So the reality is that we ask ourselves why certain businesses are in certain areas, and there's a host of reasons that go into this. But one of them, of those many reasons, is the census. And it's that they look at this to see where certain populations are, to see where people are located to determine if they're going to build businesses there. And then last but not least, it also determines about where federal dollars are going into things of that nature. So the census is just really important. Currently, the deadline is October 5th, so there is still some time. The beauty about the census is that only one person in the household should get like can count everybody. So it's not that every individual person needs to complete the census, but one person can do it on behalf of the household. And we find that people who are often undercounted are young folks, renters, and children under 5. And so, really wanted to make sure that we do that. And also, people who are unhoused or transient. So, if you have somebody who I know I've been in this position before where I've had friends or family members who have stayed with me for extended periods of time, go ahead and make sure that they're getting counted in the census too, because it just really shows a record that we were here. Um, it's just a really great thing. I would say something on a personal tip is that like recently I've been doing some genealogy research into my own family tree and background, and something that's really been really helpful to me is looking at the census records dating back to like the 1850s. And so I say like even from just a history buff, it's just a really great tool to have. I know that there's some hesitation because of the information, but again, it's not the most invasive information. I mean, Facebook probably has a lot more data on you than what the census is asking for. And the benefit about the census too is that they can't share that information that would result in like any persecution or anything negative happening to your household. So if there's a worry about that, then that is not a possibility with the information that you give the census. They can't cross share that with other departments. But I appreciate that question for that person who submitted that as well. Now, somebody asked, how do you request an absentee ballot? And weren't they supposed to send me an application? So I will say, when Secretary of State in Georgia sent out all the applications during the primaries, that was technically a one-time thing. As of right now, I'm not aware of him planning on sending out applications again. However, I had mentioned it earlier, and I'll send this in a separate post after we finish this live, that there's actually a link where you could do it online. But when you do it online, you do need to make sure that you have your Georgia ID number. If you don't have one, that's okay. There's actually a physical form that you can fill out, like electronically, and then you can actually email it over to your county elections office to make sure that it gets processed. Hey, Toya, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you. Thank you for chiming in the comments. I was getting a little lonely. Hey, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We're just kind of going over how to request an absentee ballot and why some folks are not getting applications. I always say, like, the first step to always getting your information about how to request an absentee ballot is to always contact your county elections office or your state secretary of state. And the reason I say that is because there is a lot of information going out, and sometimes the information is not being updated in real time. And so it's really great just to kind of go straight to the source. Most Secretary of State's websites, you can find them online, you can find their contact information, stuff like that. But again, if anybody needs help or assistance with that, you can feel free to go ahead and shoot us a direct message, or you can drop it in the comments, and I can follow up with you later and assist with that. Again, our biggest thing is that We Vote, We Rise, and Women Engaged is that we really want to make sure that we're getting accurate information to folks so everybody feels comfortable going to go vote, especially this year. Um, and so I say all this to say that, like, once you fill out your absentee ballot application, especially here in Georgia, you can submit it off and you can actually track it online through the My Voter page, which is ran through the Secretary of State website. So they just need a little bit of minimal info about like where you're registered to vote. And then you can go ahead and check and see if it's been issued. And then once you receive your ballot, make sure to follow the instructions there as well. We actually have a really nifty video that we did in partnership with Brave New Films that is also on our timeline. We'll repost that as well, that outlines a bit more about the details of like how to actually complete the absentee ballot. Now, all this to say that like you do need to make sure that you are registered to vote in order to get an absentee ballot. You can't your absentee ballot application will not be processed if you're not registered to vote. So you might notice back here, I am talking about checking your status today here in Georgia, because as we know in the past, there have been voting purges that have taken place, which is a result of a court case, Shelby v. Holder, which happened in 2014, which allowed states and counties to take liberties on the voter rolls to push people off the rolls that they suspect may have moved, passed away, changed their name. But oftentimes we find that there's a lot of mistakes in that, and disproportionately affects Black and Brown people. So we always want to make sure that people are checking their status, and you need to check your status often. I always say, like, a personal story of mine is that in 2018, in the election of Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams, I voted in November. Then I also voted for the runoff in December, and I got a letter at the end of December from my county's election office, and they said that they had suspected I had moved, and that they were saying that if I didn't reply to them in so many days, that they were going to take me off the voter rolls. And I thought that was interesting because I was like, I literally just voted at the earlier this month. And so luckily, because of the line of work that I'm in, I was able to handle that situation. I was going to move in a couple months, so I ended up just re-updating my voter registration, which brings me to my next point. If you've moved or changed your name recently, it is really critical right now that you do update your voter information so it shows that, because we want to make sure that your vote is being counted in the area that you're living in. Your ID doesn't necessarily have to change with it. We just want to make sure that your voter registration information is. So for my Georgia folks, you can actually follow this website that's on my board back here, bit.ly / capital WEV lowercase OTE. So it should read bit.ly we vote. And that's just to make sure that you can check your information. You can update your information there as well. And also, just a really great tidbit is that in the state of Georgia, if you're formerly incarcerated and you're off parole and probation, have paid your fines to the state, you can actually get registered to vote. There's no need to petition for your rights back. There's no need to go through any special process. Once you've paid your fines to the state and off parole and probation, you can go ahead and get registered just like everyone else. So I would encourage you to also go to the site as well. The thing is that we just want to make sure that people have access to the ballot box. But if you're interested in doing mail-in ballot or just even voting in person, the best way to start handling and mitigating issues now is by checking your voter status. And if you ever have questions, like you're looking at your page, go ahead and also send us a message on that as well. I'm always going to keep saying that. We are here to really assist the community. I believe our team calls us like the concierge of voter engagement. So we really want to make sure that folks have what they need to feel comfortable to go vote, and that we're answering questions and getting it back to you in real time. Somebody said, what do I do if I don't get my absentee ballot? And that's a good question. I would go ahead and follow up with your county elections office. immediately. So like if you see that it's been issued but it's getting closer to election day, go ahead and follow up with them and see what they instruct for you to do. Um, I would also say also let us know as well, as we have partners who work across the state who could also double check that as well. And so we know that like right now a lot of people have a lot of concerns, and rightly so, around mailing in things and getting their mail in time and things of that nature. And I do know that I believe it was last month, um, the Postmaster General had reported that he um, he was halting any changes with the post office until post the election, and so most of the things are still rolling out in a timely manner. But I do know that for our rural communities, that they are still being impacted a lot harder than other folks. So just wanted to uplift that. So if anybody has any issues with getting their absentee ballot, I would love to connect on that, just so we can figure out what's going on. And so I think for my last question I have here, and I think I already touched on it, which is why is it so important to double check your voter registration status? And the reality of it is that there's always so many things that can change in regards to like how the county sees your information. Sometimes um, they might move you. So I will say it's not necessarily the case that like you're a registered voter and then boom, you're off the voter rolls like that every so often. But what happens is that it's kind of like a process. So first you'll be listed as an active voter, and then you'll be moved to inactive status. And that's in the case that like if you're an infrequent voter, infrequent voter just means that like you don't vote necessarily in every election. Whether we know it or not, there's typically at least one election in your area each year. Um, Outside of just presidential elections, but oftentimes like presidential elections kind of take up all the air, so people tend to only look at those the most. So we always want to make sure that people are doing that. And so I see some people, more people are in the live. Go ahead if you have any more questions. I think we're towards the end of some of the questions that I received on the front end from folks, and some of the questions that our team has been getting as we engage with them online and stuff. Are there any? Is there anybody on here who's from out of state? So- Okay. It's okay. I get it. Like folks are probably like living their lives or listening to it in the background, and I appreciate it. Oh, there we go. Yes. Toya, where are you from? I feel like that's a loaded question. I know Toya, everybody. Um, so how does voting feel for you, Toya? Do you mind chiming in the comments about it? You can let me know if I'm asking you too many questions. Louisiana, yes. And I'm trying to think, like Louisiana has vote by mail, but I don't think you all have early voting. Last I checked, but I could be wrong. I might be wrong. Actually, I think I'm thinking about Missouri. Random fun fact about me: I'm born and raised Kansas City, Missouri. You know, KCMO. I always have to make sure we say the Missouri side, and that's a whole nother thing. Okay, you said it's okay so far. I'm glad that that's the case. I know that like everything seems a little topsy turvy, especially with the news this morning, and everything that's going on. It seems like the news every time. I was just talking to someone earlier today that like it seems like everything was shifting and stuff. Okay, I'm glad. That is so glad. I'm glad you were able to check your status today. I know for my out of state folks, and I think somebody's reached in about this before. If you're also interested in checking your status as well, this link would not be for you. I would direct you to vote.org. That's V as in Victor, .org. Oh, hey, Malika. Okay. The question is for folks who can't see the chat, if you aren't sure you've been counted, can you check? That's a good question. And to my knowledge, unfortunately, we cannot check to see if we've already been counted. However, I will say the best practice is that if you don't know if you've been counted or not, you can go ahead and actually complete the census again. The Census Bureau has stated a couple times that uh, you can go ahead and take that, and they actually have people in charge of making sure that they go through duplicates and things like that. But I always say it's better safe than sorry. So like, just go ahead and fill that out. So you can fill the census out second time, but you can't vote twice. Like, um, all right. But I appreciate you for uplifting that, Malika, because it's definitely like I know we've encountered a few people who we've talked to, and they'd be like, I think I took it because I think if I remember correctly, Census Day was like April 1st, and that feels like years ago. So so I really appreciate that, and thank you, Tori, for dropping that in the chat. I think we might do vote by mail. Yeah, that's true. Definitely maintaining safety and stuff like that, especially like considering all the factors. The thing is that for many of us, we're in areas where COVID-19 has not gone away, and that's definitely a very real thing. And so, making sure that we're following best practices. In fact, we're working on a small video to outline for folks because we understand that, like, for some people, vote by mail may not be an option, but to talk a little bit more in depth about how we can vote in person safely. So, of course, practicing the safety practices like wearing a mask, sanitizing frequently. And I know Georgia here has made some strides to make vote in person much safer and also address the issues that happened in the primaries in June. I actually went to go vote in person during the runoff in August. And there was definitely some major changes, especially with the new machines and stuff. But no, I appreciate this conversation, y'all. It makes it feel less lonely. I will say I'm very new to the live streaming, but I really appreciate you all. And so we want to make sure that we have this as a resource for you all. Also, too, like we're gonna be doing a part two tonight as well, kind of like a happy hour style on our Instagram live. So, if there's a question or anything that you think of in the in between time, we can also answer it there too. Make sure to bring your happy hour drink. I'm gonna be bringing some cider. It's the fall. Fall is my jam. It's like one step closer to winter. So, so I'm excited about that. Are there any other questions from folks who are still on the live? I think we have about 10 more minutes. If not, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about some of the amazing events that we have coming up here at Women Engaged and some other ways that you can get engaged as well. And mind you, this is stuff that you can do straight from your home that can really get you involved in helping us get the word out to make sure that people have what they need to go vote and feel confident about it, but also what we do beyond the election November 3rd. So coming up, October 5th is a major day here in Georgia. Not only is it the census deadline nationally, but it's also our voter registration deadline. So we're actually going to be doing a huge push and trying to make sure that people are getting registered and getting information that they need. If you're interested in volunteering with those efforts, please go ahead and send us a direct message, or you can contact me or contact our office. Um, for that information, we'll be doing some text banking, sending out messages, making sure that people have what they need to go vote, and sending them out this link as well. We'll also have a social media toolkit, so you can send out cool graphics and memes and stuff to your networks as well, because we're learning that like what it really takes to beat misinformation is by us just having real conversations with our friends and families beyond the headlines that we see. So, like, everybody's done it. You see the headline, something comes across the top of your phone, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this happened. But then it's also like, let's start having other conversations about, like, if you know somebody's moved recently, like, hey, you moved recently. You should go ahead and update your voter registration. Or, did you get counted in the census? Do you need me to help you with that? And so you can help people with that as well. And have like these other kinds of conversations to really bring it in. Because the reality is that we can really take back some of our power through voting and just being civically engaged. In our work, we always uplift the history that a lot of times politics has been very transactional, especially for Black communities and communities of people of color, where oftentimes like these larger groups and entities will parachute into our communities, tell us that we need to vote, tell us exactly what we need to vote for. Like we don't live there. Like we don't know what our communities need. And so we really want to build into really building relationships and building community around the issues and the things that we find are issues and holding our communities and our elected officials accountable to addressing those things and being involved in that process. So another thing that we're also starting to work on too, as well as starting to roll out some messaging in some ways that we can start talking to our legislators, especially on the state level, to deal with the atrocities that are happening in detention centers, especially around as we know about like the whistleblower case that happened a couple weeks ago, where a black woman who was a nurse at one of the detention centers here in Georgia really blew the whistle on some of the atrocities that were happening at the Irwin Detention Center. And so that's also a way that, like, even though I know for myself I was heartbroken when I heard that, is that I know that I had an ability that, like, I can use my civic power to call my state legislators and tell them that this is wrong and that we need to do something about this. If you're sometimes surrounding. Okay, so Toya is uplifting in the chat, and I'm just saying this out loud for folks who may not see the comments. Like, if you're in small towns surrounding the northern Baton Rouge area, your voter location is typically in Baker, Louisiana, and it's really easy to vote there. And she also says to ask your elderly family or less tech savvy family if they need help checking their voter status. Thank you for uplifting that. I think one thing that I've definitely been learning now that we're in the pandemic is that we do need to work about being a little bit more accessible. And that's definitely something that we take into heart here at Women Engaged. When the pandemic first came down, we did a complete shift to make sure that we included a question around COVID and then started following up with people who needed assistance to help connect them with some of those issues, because we knew that, like, um, people weren't always going to see the same things that we were seeing online. The algorithms on social media are made in a way that we kind of sometimes exist in a vacuum. And that's where, us building this community, sharing out posts is so critical. It seems like it's a small thing, but it means a lot to really share trusted information from trusted people and from community so we can get that to our folks. I love that. Superpower is our superpower. That is so cute. Oh my goodness. I love it. And I don't know if people have seen, but we also have a save the date. We're also doing another watch party. So earlier this week, we had a watch party around the first presidential debate. And we're planning to have another one around the vice presidential debate, which is happening Wednesday, starting at 9 o'clock. We'll be having a pre-show chat at 8:30. So I hope you all can join us for that as well. And we're just going to be doing a lot of different opportunities as well, like wanting to get people engaged in the ways that we can, but we can also bring joy in it. I mean, if you like making TikToks, look, I make TikToks, okay? TikTok, TikTok is life. It sustains me through this movement. It's a great way of communication. But if TikTok's not your jam and you're more into Facebook, we also have tools for that as well. There's room really for all of us. It's really hands on deck to make sure that we are bridging the gaps that are taking place, and making sure that people feel connection even in these times where we're physically distant. So really wanted to uplift that as well. But I appreciate this conversation going. Y'all are great. And I think one thing, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm a little all over the place, but I just thought about this in regards to the census. I know some folks might be a little bit hesitant because originally, when information was coming out about the census earlier in the year, people were talking about a postcard with a code on it. You do not need a code to complete the census. In fact, if you go to, I believe, our bit.ly's bit.ly, and I meant to write it on the board now that I'm thinking about it, but I did not. So I'll post that. You know what? I've been talking about posting this stuff in a separate post, and I'll just post it in the comments. So the bit.ly that we use is bit.ly in all caps, we count 2020. And so you can actually click on that link and just say that, like, I don't have a code, and it takes you directly to the same page. The code is just another level of tracking, per se, on their end, as far as like making sure that every household did it before they actually have to go back and check it again. But it's okay. You don't have to have a code to complete the census. So went ahead, put that down in the chat, because again, y'all, I am learning too, as we navigate through the pandemic. But I say this is just a great time for us to continue to fine tune things and stuff like that. So I went ahead and dropped the bit.ly for the census as well. Do folks have any other questions or concerns or things that are coming up in particular they want to uplift in the chat? I think we have about, let's say, 5 more minutes in this hour. And I want to go ahead and apologize now, like again, to folks for the little technical difficulties at the beginning, but I appreciate y'all for joining us now. This has been really great. I'm really excited to spend this month of October with y'all, like, as we continue to push this information out. Let's see here. Sorry, y'all, my phone's just buzzing, and I really can't focus on multiple things at the same time, right? Um, okay, it's all good. Okay, so just a couple quick reminders that for Georgia, our voter registration deadline is coming up on Monday. So it's the census deadline. We have the VP presidential debate Wednesday. Early voting starts in Georgia in person October 12th. We have some resources as far as like how to vote absentee and what's at stake, as well as resources about how to request your absentee ballot and how to track that process as well using the My Voter page. You can also stay engaged with us by, of course, following, liking us on Facebook. So, following us on Instagram and Twitter, and also just signing up on our website. Our website is www.womenengage. Oop, I'm typing it in and saying it out loud at the same time. .org. And so, oh yay! Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it. Um, I went ahead and dropped our website there as well. You can feel free to peruse it just to see some of the stuff that we've been doing. And if you all are interested, we would love to have you join us and the amazing work that we're doing. We have room literally for everyone. There's so many moving parts to making what's possible. And I just want to go ahead and give a shout out to the staff members and the team of Women Engaged and We Vote, We Rise. I mean, we are a mighty team with a lot of different plans and things in place. And it's really brought to life through the amazing work that our Canvas team and our staff members are doing. So I appreciate everyone and their amazing support. And I always, again, from the bottom of my heart, really and truly appreciate community because that's really what makes this work so valuable. Being able to engage with people every day about the issues and really being able to hear people feel energized and feel better about the fact that, like, you get to talk to someone who doesn't shame you into voting, but speaks from a place of empowerment and love. And that's something that we really want to center in the work that we're doing. So it's going to be an interesting month. We're definitely going to have like a great time, have some different topics, maybe bring on some more folks onto these live streams to have conversations about some of the particulars down ballot. Really want to highlight that too, is that like when we're talking about voting, it's not just for the major ticket items, it's down ballot. There's so many things. I know Georgia, we have, I think, a two-page ballot. There's like three state resolutions. A lot of counties have special elections, so do cities. And so it's really important that we're voting like up and down the ballot for these very critical positions that really impact our lives on a day to day. So that's why I'm going to, do a special uplift with the Public Service Commission, which actually controls the utilities here in Georgia, which is one example that like of like something very tangible that we need to keep an eye out on. And so yeah, and again, I appreciate you all. It's about 12:51. And so if there's no other questions, I am going to head off. I'm going to sit here for a couple minutes just to give people a moment in the chat if anyone wants to drop any questions. But until then, I'm just going to turn up the music a bit. Okay. I didn't know what song that was. Had to make sure. Also, this is our special Spotify playlist that our team has designed to get out the vote. So if folks are interested in adding on to it, I'm actually going to drop a link to that as well because, this year might be stressful, but we are also going to, try to shake it off, pump up the jams, and really get it going. So here's our collaborative playlist. We would love to have you all on it. So add your favorite jams. Sorry, I can't type and talk. Vote by Miguel. I haven't checked that one out. Or here, I just dropped the Spotify link into the chat. Go ahead and feel free to add that on, Toya. I appreciate it because It says right now for National Voter Registration Day, I'm gonna actually check and change that name right now. Oh, so funny. Pumping the jams with Women Engaged and the We Vote We Rise team. Cause I mean, we are gonna prioritize our mental health. We're gonna make it. It's gonna be great. Like, and so our official hashtag, of course, is We Vote We Rise. So if you share this live or share any of our materials, we'd love for you to include that hashtag. But just remember, women engaged in our programs are we are a nonpartisan 501c3, which means that we do not advocate for or against any political party or candidate. All right, y'all. As the song says, we are too legit to quit, so we are going to keep on trucking along and keeping it going. I hope this all was very helpful for folks. If you want to, you can come jam with us later on this evening as we do Instagram Live for happy hour. Bring your favorite drink or your favorite cocktail, and we'll have a conversation again, talking more about the particulars of voting in this upcoming election. And with that, I'm signing off. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you all have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend. Bye.